Kia ora, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This will get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock. With news, the Fed has held its policy rate unchanged at 5.5%, but given strong signals, cuts are coming, but later than markets were expecting. However, they still see 3 cuts in 2024. There was little reaction in financial markets, although Wall Street rose on the news. Meanwhile, American mortgage interest rates rose back to just on 7% last week for their benchmark 30-year fixed rates, following the prior week's surprise drop. They came as mortgage applications ticked lower again last week and are now 14% lower than the same week a year ago. And China held its prime loan rates unchanged at record lows as well in its review yesterday. You will recall they cut their 5-year prime rate, the reference rate for mortgage lending, by an outsized 25 basis points last month. And Taiwanese export orders slumped more than 10% in February, a surprise because markets had expected a 1.3% rise following a 1.9% gain in January. But it was not to be. Orders for heavy equipment fell, especially from the EU, Japan and China, and these falls overwhelmed their rising AI chip exports. And the EU Sentiment Index rose to be less negative in its March survey. It is now at its least weak level since February 2022, amid a gradual slowdown in inflation and optimism surrounding potential interest rate cuts by the ECB later in the year. In Australia, a recent swell in business failures in construction, hospitality and retail has pushed up the number of monthly insolvencies to its highest in almost a decade. The absolute levels aren't high, but the trend will worry officials there. And New Zealand has slipped one place in the World Happiness Report rankings and now sits just outside the top 10 at number 11 in 2024. Australia moved up from 12th last year to 10th this year. The US Treasury 10-year yield starts today at 4.28% and down 2 basis points from yesterday, and the price of gold will start today little changed at just on $2,157 an ounce. And oil prices are lower again today at just on $81 a barrel in the US, while the international Brent price is just on $85 a barrel. Both are $1.50 lower than this time yesterday. And the Kiwi dollar started today at just on 60.4 US cents and a small 10 basis point dip from yesterday. After the Fed news, it rose to 60.6 US cents. Against the Aussie was still at 92.4 Australian cents. Against the euro was still at 55.6 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today just on 69.6 and marginally firmer. You can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston, and we'll do this again tomorrow.